Oh yes. Now we start. Please turn to page 1 of the opening recitations. Dala Dhamma Jebe Da Nobar Jebe Gek Tarpa Dan Tamje Kembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Dham Jege Jebe Mananga Dan Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dan Den Dunga Dan Nudu Lana Me Pa Yang Dan Pra Zobe Janju Rinpoche Tombra Jan Dala Dangwa Jebe Da Nobar Jebe Gek Tarba Dang Tamje Kembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Dham Jege Jebe Mananga Dan Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dan Den Dunya Dan De Nudu Lana Me Pa Yang Dan Pra Zobe Janju Rinpoche Tombra Jan Dala Dangwa Jebe Da Nobar Jebe Gek Tarba Dang Tamje Kembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tham Jege Jebe Mananga Dan Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dang Den Dunga Dang De Nudu Lana Me Pa Yang Dabara Zobe Janju Rinpoche Tombra Jan Dhala Dangwa Jebe Da Nobar Jebe Gek Tarpa Dan Tamje Kembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tham Jege Jebe Mananga Dang Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dang Den Dunga Dang De Nudu Lana Me Pa Yang Dabra Zobe Janju Rinpoche Tombara Jai De Je De Sama Geki Bardu Lunga Yesum Ge Wala Go Mashi Bardu Lunga Yesum Ge Wala Go Du Tering Ne Zonde Nema Santa Samgi Bardu Lunga Yesum Ge Wala Go Sanje Jodan Soge Jonam La Chanchu Pardu Dani Kepsu Che Dage Jenso Gebe Sonam Ge Chola Penche Sanje Chuprasho Sanje Jodan Soge Jonam La Chanchu Pardu Dani Kepsu Che Dage Jenso Gebe Sonam Ge Chola Penche Sanje Chuprasho Sanje Jodan Soge Jonam La Chanchu Pardu Dani Kepsu Che Dage Jenso Gebe Sonam Ge Chola Penche Sanje Chuprasho Manang Kadang Nyampe Senchen Tamche Dewa Dang Dewe Gedan Dembara Gyurji Tungyao Dang Tungyao Gi Gyudan Dewa Gyurji Tungyao Mebe Dewa Dang Me Dewa Gyurji Nering Chadang Nidang Dewe Dang Nyong Lan Pra Gyurji Manang Kadang Nyampe Senchen Tamche Dewa Dang Dewe Gedan Dembara Gyurji Tungyao Dang Tungyao Gi Gyudan Dewa Gyurji Tungyao Mebe Dewa Dang Me Dewa Gyurji Niding Chadang Nidang Dewe Dang Nyong Lan Pra Gyurji Manang Kadang Nyampe Senchen Tamche Dewa Dang Dewe Gedan Dembara Gyurji Tungyao Dang Tungyao Gi Gyudan Dewa Gyurji Tungyao Mepe Dewa Dang Me Dewa Gyurji Niding Chadang Nidang Dewe Dang Nyong Lan Pra Gyurji Je Changwan Dili Naroda Marmi Dapo Padu Jiden Gun Kadun Sunden Sawe Lame Sham Sanju Lama Yidam Chogyong La Sowa Depso Dagyu Jin Jilum Gyuden Gin Dome Zamling Gin Tape Tonson Yong La Gyab Some Gyawa Durje Changpa Jiden Gumbo Shabla Dudu Taktu Samgyu Gyoleme Jinji Loshi Tuje Chen Ningi Mumpa Senege Simto Dedu Tobra Jinji Lo Hong Jin Yujin Nun Changsa Bema Gesa Tombola Yasen Jogi Ngodunye Bema June Sheshuda Kodu Kando Mampu Korageki Jesu Tadumgi Jinji Lobji Shesu So Guru Bema Siddhi Hong men choki yikin pudang ne desun sanje kungi ngobo ni rang sen choku ngon sun ton sepa tsawe la me shabla so wa de. So today we practice the Achi cleansing offering. I am Vajrayogini, instantaneously above my head is protector of three worlds, Ranashri, abiding naturally as a Nirmanakaya. From the bhumi syllable in my heart emanate yam come to purify all the impurities, stains of the offering substances. Then the syllables ahung emanate which transform the immaculate essence of the offering substances into the nature of the elixir of primordial wisdom, turning them into substances that are agreeable to each of the types, entirely filling the limitless 3,000-fold universe. Ahum, ahum. Sarvata-gate bayo bishamukebya Sarvata-kang ungate saparana hemangagana kang soham Nama Sarvata-gate bayo bishamukebya Sarvata-kang ungate saparana hemangagana kang Soham. Namha Sarvata-gate bayo bishamukebya Sarvata-kang ungate saparana hemangagana kang Soham. From the inner nature that is spontaneously present since the beginning, I invite and request the protectors of the teachings to come to this birthless, perfectly luminous secret mandala. Yudakinis who magically appear from the activity of primordial wisdom, supreme guardians who abide by their command and oath, manifest magical forms from the Dharma Dhatu, worldly and primordial wisdom emanations and retinue. With your hearts of Mayas roused, please come here. From the expanse of the excellent azure space ablaze with turquoise light, specifically from the azure crack of Mule at Durdum, great elder sister Achi Nanangza, please come here to tame venomous enemies and obstructors, magical apparitions of elusive forms emerging from the sphere of primordial wisdom, other deities, exalted activities, wisdom, samaya, and magnetizing, guardians of the conqueror's teachings, each according to their own type, retinues of pacification, enrichment, magnetization, and destruction, cries of longing, yogins calling out like a dragon's roar with welcoming substances, silk ribbons and hands beckoning. I bring forth offering clouds of cleansing smoke and ocean of elixir, Due to your samayas, come here to this place of unsullied samaya. Samaja ja hom bam ho. La la ho he he Bhagavan Akarshaya Samaya Ja. Goddess, Lady of Space, along with your entire retinue, please be seated happily, each according to your like. I bring forth oceans of offering clouds, physical and visualized. With devotion I praise and pay homage with body, speech, and mind. Here now at this place and in this supreme year, or at this excellent juncture when the planets and stars are in favorable positions, with the aspiration prayers of all majestic foe destroying Buddhas for the exhaustion of the generative factors, may I achieve in its entirety the true meaning of this life as I make this cleansing offering to you, deities. Now let ghosts, demons, mishaps, and obstructors disperse to their own abodes, cleanse and purify obscurations and impurities. Give with various supreme medicines that clear the afflictive emotions, finest silks, jewels, incense, and aloes wood, sandalwood, cedar wood, fragrant fir, juniper, dwarf, rhododendron, birch, and so on. All these types of fragrant and ambrosial woods, flour, butter, milk, and various types of food and drink. We make these clouds of pervading smoke of this cleansing offering. For you, glorious root and lineage gurus, we cleanse. For you, Idam Vajra Yogini, along with retinue, we cleanse. For you, protectress of the teachings, chief lady of space, Chuki Droma. For you, exalted activities, Dakini, wisdom Dakini, Samaya Dakini, magnetizing Dakini. And for you, the three goddesses who devour, slay, and snatch away, we cleanse, heart-shaking mother, and raise her to the life force, wrathful red mother of exalted activities, along with retinue, along with all your assemblies of thousands of dark red flesh eaters, for all you matrikas and Dakinis, without exception, we cleanse. For you, the powerful Lady Tashi sitting of the supreme crystal tresses of the Himalaya. For you, the goddesses of the four families, the five sister consort, and retinue, and you 12 Tenmas along with your retinue, we cleanse, so that the going gods and the multitude of family guardians The guardians of the precious teachings of the guard you, and oceans of sworn guardians protect us, the Samaya keeping yogins. We offer this cleansing as this touches the deities, and as the evil of defilements from Samaya breaches, defilements from violations of vows, quarrels, filth, and demons, those coming from contact with corpses, rape, incest, infidelity, and falling of hearts. All these foul defects are cleansed, and we thus become pure. In this way, with this profound ritual of bathing and cleansing smoke, the guardian deities are pleased. Violations and breaches are mended. All obstructive and discordant conditions are quelled, and all our wishes that accord with the Dharma are abundantly accomplished. Hear now with lofty praises to the guardian deities, glory to Chokidroma with these outer, inner, and secret support substances, glory to Chokidroma with these various desirable offering clouds, glory to Chokidroma with music of devotional songs of praise, glory to Chokidroma with mantras, mudras, and samadhi. Glory to Chokidroma, superior to the pinnacle of cyclic existence. Glory to Chokidroma, brighter than the sun and moon. Glory to Chokidroma, good as wish-fulfilling jewels. Glory to Chokidroma, full like a summer lake. Glory to Chokidroma, to spread the never-waning teachings of Buddhas. Glory to Chokidroma, to guard and fulfill the ultimate accomplishment of disciples. Glory to Chokidroma, may the guardians and humans not be separated. All the excellent glories, wealth, power, and blessings of the animate and inanimate, of the environment and inhabitants in samsara and nirvana, I now bring together these enriching presences, prosperous fortunes swirling like an ocean. By the great might of all you guardians, guard the jewel of the essence teachings, increase, develop, and stabilize the holders of the teachings. For us who are unerring and our retinue, increase auspiciousness and resources in our abodes. And when we are away, repel all bandits and hostile forces, dispel harmful gossips and loss. Now and in the time to come, spontaneously bring about these benefits. So that's so ginger love to so genang sang when purchase you what down some balloon get room by ginger love to sun guru and purchase what do the watching pressure. Purchase good sell to trouble so what there's so ginger love to so genang sang when purchase you what down some balloon get to bra ginger love. Guru and Tamje, Buddha of the 3 times great bliss, source of all sin, this wrathful subduer of Maras who removes all obstacles, grant your blessings, we pray. Through them may all obstacles, outer, inner, and secret, be quelled, and may all our aspirations be fulfilled. Sublime, precious, venerable, and glorious root and lineage gurus, assembly of Idam deities, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas dwelling in the 10 directions, and all assemblies of Viras, Viranis, Yoginis and Thakinis, please heed me. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana and the inherent root of virtue not result in the air worldly dharmas, the 4 causes of samsara and the resultant states of hearers and solitary realizers. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, particularly those enemies who hate us, obstruct us, who harm those who create obstacles, Maras who mislead, and their Mara retinues have happiness, be separated from suffering, and quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, and precious Bodhi. By the power of this last root of virtue, may we benefit sentient beings with body, speech, and mind. May the afflictive thoughts of attachment, aversion, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise in my mind stream. May thoughts of name, fame, gain, respect, and so forth in this life not arise for even a moment. With my mind stream moistened by love, compassion, and bodhicitta, may I come under the care of virtuous spiritual friends, and having become as limitless as space, may I achieve the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May, by the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. So today, we are continuing in this 3rd teaching, this teaching on dependent origination. So as we have seen, right, Gilpa is using this term, this phrase, dependent origination, pratitya samutpada, and using it so that it's not only a name for what most others would recognize to be pratitya samutpada, which is speaking of causality and karmic causality, the arising due to causes and conditions. Appearances turn up. We have experience of these appearances. All of these are the common reference when we say dependent origination. Here we have seen how Kyopa also uses this name dependent origination to refer to what is then otherwise normally the word, the term emptiness describes. And here he calls it dependent origination, free from the extremes, free from the 8 elaborations, the 8 extremes of elaborations. So these 8, as given in Nagarjuna's fundamental verses on the middle way is not ceasing, not arising, not extinct, not permanent, not one, not many, not coming, not going. And in fact, Gilbert Rinpoche says, this is not something that I just made up. This is exactly what is said in Nagarjuna's verses to the middle, where right at the front, right at the start of this text, this important instruction, Nagarjuna says, dependent origination is not ceasing, not arising, not extinct, not permanent, not one, not many, not coming, and not going. So I mentioned, this is intended to have an effect of, if you understand what this is saying, at the first level of understanding, at the words, even these words of Nagarjuna, should cause you to go, what? Wait. Not ceasing, not arising, not extinct, not permanent, not one, not many, not coming, not going. Those are characteristics. Those are words to describe emptiness. Whereas when we talk about dependent origination, aren't we talking about ceasing, arising, going into extinct, permanent, one or many, coming or going, right? Because that's normally how dependent origination is explained. So it's meant to give us some what. So that's a good what. That means you understand the words, That means you understand that kind of deliberate bringing up of something that will cause us to reflect deeper. Upon reflecting deeper, this is how Gilbert Rinpoche then expresses it as dependent origination, free from the 8 extremes, and dependent origination, that is cause and effect. That these are 2 types of dependent origination. Right? So this is what we have been looking at thus far. Now in this next section, how dependent origination was taught by the Buddha. The view of non-Buddhist Fordists, these are basically talking about those who hold other views, other philosophical views, those who hold other philosophical views, those who have other understandings of how things work. The view of non-Buddhist Fordists is that there is a self that is postulated to be permanent, single, and independent. So these are the 3 qualities of self. That a self is something that is permanent, it doesn't change. So it is singular, that means it's not composed of parts. Singular meaning that. It's not composed of parts. And finally, it is independent. It has autonomy. It can decide what it wants to do or not want to do. These are said to be the self that other spiritual traditions believed in. They postulate. They put forth. There is such a self. And that kind of self is a permanent self. And it's a singular self. It's not composed of parts. And it has autonomy. It can act on its own. Now, with regards to this kind of self, Buddha says, right, this is an impossible kind of self. This kind of self is impossible to exist. So it's not so much, right, that the Buddha is saying there's no self whatsoever. It's just this kind of self cannot exist, does not exist. That's how the Buddha, that's why the Buddha says, no self, not self, but not self or no self is this kind of self. In fact, this kind of self, famously, there's one very, famous spiritual text called the Bhagavad Gita. I'm sure you have heard it, The Bhagavad Gita in the Hindu tradition. There, God, Krishna, who is God with a capital G, gave this teaching to his disciple Arjuna. Arjuna was about to lead his good and righteous brothers into a universal war against evil, represented by the evil cousins that they were feuding with. And so this is an ancient story in India of two sets of cousins feuding over a kingdom, fighting over a kingdom. But it's used as a way to talk about the struggle between good and bad, light and darkness, that kind of a story. So Arjuna, it said in this story that Krishna, God, was Arjuna's chariot driver. As these two sides was about to start a war, this war that will, set everything kind of in place, which it is said that God intended this to happen. God wants this to happen because it needs to happen to clean the world of, evil. So it said that, Arjuna asked Krishna, take me to the front line. I want to survey and see the enemies on the other side. So then it said that when he got out there, he looked across and he saw that these enemies, are his cousins, his uncles, his granduncles. They grew up together, And so then he said that he hesitated. He felt weak. He said, I don't want to. This war cannot happen, he says. So interestingly there, God tells Arjuna, you can only slay, you can only kill the body, you cannot kill the self. That you have the wrong understanding. It is only the body, that will be killed, and that doesn't matter. The self, the divine self, is permanent, cannot be destroyed. It's singular, it's independent. So that's a particular view. I'm not saying, right, that this is a literal story that, God is encouraging Arjuna to go randomly kill people. Yeah, there's a bigger story going on. I'm just giving one example of, this idea that there is this self is permanent, and this self goes from lifetime to lifetime, and the analogy given is like someone changing clothing. But this analogy of someone changing clothing as explaining the continuity beyond this life is not accurate for describing how the Buddha talks about the continuity that goes beyond this life. Okay, just as a footnote. Other contexts, other occasions, other retreats, other programs, I have addressed this before and will continue to clarify this point. Yeah? Just take note. Yeah. And so here he says, this is the view of those others. So then the next line, the five aggregates. So the five aggregates, of course, is not something that other traditions teach. This is just explaining for our own understanding. Here, Kyopa says, on the basis of the five aggregates, which of course we understand, Buddha taught us that these five aggregates are not permanent, not singular, and not independent. In fact, they are dependent. They consist of many, many parts, so not singular, and therefore they are not permanent. They are changing, they are shifting. So these five aggregates are held by these others to be the I. They either say that this is the I, or they say this belongs to me. And then me is something separate from these physical and mental emotional processes. Either they say the physical mental processes somehow is collectively one thing, and that is the I, or they say there is an even more mysterious I that possesses these physical and mental emotional processes. So they are held to be I or belonging to me. When the Buddha had not yet appeared in the world, this view of permanence, singularity, and independence has been established by the three groups of six. And it was held by everyone. So saying that this is pre-Buddhist, as in pre-Buddha. People believe in this view already. In that view, of course, Kyoba Rinpoche is just summarizing overall. There are lots of nuances between these groups. That's why you have 18 groups. Sometimes said to be 6, and sometimes you get this list of 18 as well. Now, generally, you can say, in that view of permanence, for example, it was held that after death, a human is reborn as a human, and a horse is reborn as a horse. This is one particular group, not necessarily all of them believe that. So one way in which this idea of permanence plays out, they say these selves, if they are human, they'll be born again as a human. If they are a cow, they'll be born again as a cow. If they're an insect, they'll be born again as a bug. A ladybird, they'll be born again as a ladybug. But of course, this view, a horse will be a horse, human will be a human, it's not, necessarily like, say, the view of Hindus. But there are also some views within here, not discussed here by Kyoba Rinpoche, but there are also some views that, for example, says that what happens is that it's this self or this soul is constantly evolving upwards. And they don't accept that it will fall back. Meaning, first it's less evolved, and then it becomes more evolved from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime until, X number of lifetimes, it graduates samsara, that is liberation. There are some groups that believe that kind of view. And even today, I think among kind of what we may call New Age, they have this belief of many lifetimes. And each lifetime, you are here to learn a lesson. I'm sure we've heard expressions like that. We are here to learn a lesson. And when we have, successfully learned the lesson, then we get to go home. Otherwise, you keep cycling. That's, all these kinds of ideas and views about what is going on. Then here, Kyopa says, it was not held that this would follow cause and result, meaning, so the main problem for Kyopa, whether a view about how things happen is skillful or not skillful, it's mainly tied to the question of, do you believe that your actions matter? Do you believe that your actions matter because happiness and suffering is the result of choices that you make? How things would arise, how your experience is going to be in the next moment, in the next hour, in the next day, in the next week, in the next month, in the next year. Chiefly depends on what choices have you made, what choices are you making, what choices you will be making. Then the Buddha appeared in the world and taught dependent origination, free from the 8 extremes of elaboration, as an antidote to the notion that the 5 aggregates, that what is merely the 5 aggregates, are held to be I or self. So when the Buddha appeared in the world, he taught not self. He taught emptiness. That is the dependent origination, free from the 8 extremes of elaboration. And that was taught in order to free us from mistakenly taking that which is not permanent, not singular, not independent, to be permanent, singular, and independent. Not recognizing what is essentially the 5 aggregates, and instead thinking any or part or collectively the 5 aggregates are in fact this permanent, singular, and independent self or I. So the Buddha taught not self, Buddha taught emptiness. Then as an antidote to the denial, to the failure to see, to appreciate cause and effect, the principle of cause and effect, that is based also on that notion of a permanent and single self. So in fact, some of them said, actions don't matter, because the self is never affected by actions. Actions, in fact, belong to the realm of confusion. So renounce all action. So there are some of these views. Give up all actions. For all actions lead to more bondage. Buddha actually says, no, it's not actions that lead to bondage. It's confusion that leads to bondage. And it's not possible to free yourself from actions, the Buddha says. I mean, sounds kind of, you're like, yeah, obviously. But no, there are some spiritual traditions that says, ultimately all actions keep us in bondage. So the goal is to minimize action, until finally even the all-important action of eating and drinking you should give up. The Buddha says, no, that's not how you overcome this problem of dukkha. It's a problem of not seeing, of confusion. Confusion that then leads to wrong choices being made. So as an antidote to the denial of cause and result that is based on that, on those notions of a permanent and singular self, he taught dependent origination of cause and effect. So, to explain, to elaborate, in Varanasi, the Buddha first turned the Dharma wheel of the Four Truths. The teachings, especially those teachings found in the Vinaya collection, in the Disciplined Conduct collection. And there, he taught dependent origination of cause and result. So these are like the fundamental teachings of the Buddha in the so-called first turning of the wheel of Dharma, which happened in Deer Park, right outside of what's today Varanasi, right outside there. And then he taught the disciplined conduct for monks, nuns, men, laywomen, all. So chiefly, he taught the dependent origination of cause and result. Now, in regard to the dependent origination of cause and result related to samsara, so dependent origination not only is focused on how samsara came to be, it's also focused on how to put an end to samsara. But with regards to how it's related to samsara, he taught the two truths of suffering and of origin. And so now, unpacking or dividing the Four Noble Truths. So then the first Noble Truths pertains to the condition of samsara. The condition of the characteristic of samsara is dukkha. That dukkha has a cause. Grasping, craving. So these are the first two Noble Truths. With these, the Tathagata formulated, the Buddha formulated the trainings about what must be avoided. So, giving up the 8 worldly concerns, stop creating the 10 non-virtues. Then, in regard to the cause and result of nirvana, how to achieve nirvana, what are the causes and results involved, he taught the truth of the path and the result, the truth of cessation. So then he taught the third and the fourth Noble Truth. Again, the third and the fourth Noble Truth is basically the cause and result of nirvana. The third Noble Truth, the Noble Truth of cessation, is the result. The fourth Noble Truth, the Noble Truth of the path, the method, the process of waking up, that's the cause. So the Four Noble Truths can be divided into, can be understood using the teaching on cause and effect, cause and result. With these, he formulated the trainings about what must be practiced. Right? Instead of the 10 non-virtues, we practice the 10 virtues. We practice the 6 perfections of the Bodhisattvas. We practice and cultivate the myriad qualities. Thus, even for the Buddha, there was nothing to teach other than this dependent origination. In other words, dependent origination, free from the 8 extremes, is like the body, and dependent origination of cause and result is like the eyes and the other sense organs. It gives an analogy of how these two sets of teachings function. As forms can't be seen without eyes, and the objects of the 5 senses can't be perceived without the 5 sense organs, the body becomes useless without them. In the same way, there won't be much progress. Even if the dependent origination free from the 8 extremes has been realized, or you think have been realized, if you do not also see the dependent origination of cause and result, then it's not true attainment. And so realization cannot just be the realization of emptiness. It also has to be the realization of cause and effect, how cause and effect works. Yeah, in fact, in other contexts, it's quite clear that these two realizations need to happen. Because, for example, if we look at the way they talk about the 10 bodhisattva levels, the 10 bodhisattva bhumis, then it's clearly stated that up to the level of the 8th bhumi, which is the realization where bodhisattvas realize completely the emptiness of the self as it pertains to the person, is realized in the 8th bhumi. So emptiness has been realized. But at the 8th bhumi, when emptiness has been fully realized, what has not been achieved yet is, so the wisdom of emptiness has been achieved, but what has not been achieved yet is the wisdom of all-knowingness. And when we say all-knowing, what are we talking about? Knowing cause and effect. Elsewhere I've mentioned this before, I don't know if you remember, when we say things like, like in our prayers, we say, oh, Buddhas, oh, Achi, oh, Manjushri, whatever, so you can see past, present, and future. Like Achi's mirror is said to reveal past, present, and future, On the kind of common understanding, people will say, oh, that means, Achi is very reliable if you do divination of Achi. Because he can see past, present, and future. So people love these things, divination. Tell me about the future. But the real meaning of Achi seeing past, present, and future, or Buddha seeing past, present, and future, is seeing clearly cause and effect. When we try to subvert cause and effect, you think, normally that's how we think about, what is the advantage of seeing past, present, and future? We think, if I can see past, present, and future, and have the power to see that, then I can subvert the working of cause and effect, right? I mean, essentially, that's what we're trying to do. Oh, if I can see, that I'll be run over by a car, Yeah, of course, even myself, it's like, okay, I'm not going out today. So we're trying to subvert. But the real meaning of seeing past, present, and future is to see how karma is unfolding. Right now, hard to see exactly how karma is unfolding. The general principles of karma that the Buddha taught, we can see without a lot of difficulties. But exactly how every kind of condition, every situation plays out, hard for us to see. Sometimes we make plans, we do this, we do that, we want to do this, we want to do that. And then somebody comes by and say, maybe you should do something else. And then we don't register, Then the person who said that maybe don't even know why they're saying that. Then only after, right, everything is over, you go, oh, maybe that was some sort of something trying to open another door I didn't recognize. Oh, or on the other hand, you plan this, plan that, then somebody comes and say, oh, maybe you should, and then you go, and then it doesn't turn out right. Then you're like, oh, see, that door that was open, I should not have entered. But because we don't know. So that's what I mean by the intricate details, hard to see. But the principle of, plant happiness seeds, enjoy happiness fruits, plant, unhappy seeds, enjoy unhappy fruits. Those general principles are clear. But it is said that only someone who has achieved the 10th level of bodhisattvas and then the 11th level of Buddhas can see exactly cause and result playing out in all its details. So in that context, we already learned about this, you know. But in other contexts, it seems like the emphasis is on realizing emptiness or realizing nature of mind, realizing, Rigpa, right? Especially in the context of these Mahamudra, Dzogchen, realizing your original identity, realizing Buddhahood, then we think it's all about, emptiness or non-duality. People like that. Non-dual, empty. All is one. All is one, the one nature of all things, which is the emptiness. In a way, it's easy. But the ability to see how all the various different things came to be, that is said is only the wisdom of Buddhas can see all of that. Compared to the wisdom of Buddhas in that regard, even a 10th level Bodhisattva is said to be limited compared to what Buddhas can see. Now here, it says, other views on dependent origination. So Gilbert Rinpoche brings out, it says, actually, this way is not always what's taught, generally. So he says, however, it is not the case that no one holds that tenet, meaning no one holds that position that says, main thing to realize is the realized nature of mind, realize Rigpa, realize your Buddha nature. And he says, it's not the case that no one teaches that. In fact, he says, and he even admits, he says, in fact, it was held by Gampopa and Gampopa's disciples. Now he's talking about his grand teacher. Not grandfather, but grandfather in the Dharma. He says, Gampopa and his disciples, mainly in their teachings, they emphasize that. And he says, even my own teacher, Pamodrupa, also, being that he was one of Gampopa's disciples, he also taught that when he stayed on the east side of this area called Pamodru for 6 years. And that except for Jikten Sumgon, all of Pamodrupa's disciples also emphasized that part. Oh, realize Rigpa. Oh, realize emptiness. Oh, realize your Buddha nature. Oh, realize your original face. Oh, realize the nature of your mind. And then everything is great now. They accepted that once the luminosity of their own realization and the luminosity of the intermediate state becomes indistinguishable, then they would not be reborn and there would not be any more causes of ripening or results. So disciples of Pamodrupa such as Lama Minya, Marpa Sherab Yeshe, a different Marpa here, and Ugompa, they held this position. It was only when glorious Pamodrupa went to the east side of Pamodru that he began to teach that cause and result still apply even when realization is attained. How cause and effect still plays out even when nature of mind is completely realized, Buddhahood is completely realized, that it does not obstruct the workings of cause and effect. This view, this full-fledged extraordinary tenet, came up later after Jikten Sumgon had come into this world. So this is obviously not Jikten Sumgon speaking. It's the compiler of this, Dakpa, his voice. It is not the case that, and then, of course, this is important, he says, it is not the case that the previous masters did not understand this point. Here said, did not hold this extraordinary tenet, but that they taught us disciples according to our own level. And only with Jikten Sumgon did he start to teach this very not so easy point. But on the other hand, it's actually a very easy point. But its profundity lies in its simplicity. So Drikung said, now, Gampopa, Pamodrupa, Jikten Sumgon, these three lamas are indistinguishable in being one with all the Buddhas of the three times. But because of the needs of the disciples, Gampopa did not explicitly teach this position. Pamodrupa did not until the second part of his time as a teacher. And particularly we learn from Jikten Sumgon's biography that Pamodrupa started to teach about cause and effect, and started to teach the Jataka tales, seemingly to us as ABC level Buddhism. Pamodrupa was a great master of like tantric theory, for example. So in the Sakyapa tradition, where there are great scholars of tantric theory and tantric doctrine, Pamodrupa was a master of that system. So to this day, Pamodrupa's writings on that topic is still being transmitted. That's part of that transmission coming up at the end of the year. So Pamodrupa has a Lamdre text that is still being transmitted to this day, where he wrote about this tantric theory and all of that. But interestingly, towards the end of his life, he preferred to teach stories from the past life of the Buddha, the Jatakas. Stories that start with, at one time the Buddha was a monkey. Then this monkey was wandering around in the forest one day. And so Pamodrupa started to teach those teachings. He wasn't teaching these very complex tantric theory, very impressive. He wasn't teaching Madhyamaka philosophy. And he wasn't teaching nature of mind teachings. Instead, we learned that towards the end of his life, after Jikten Sumgon had arrived, Pamodrupa says, now I'm going to focus on teaching the Jataka tales. And the Jataka tales is all about the complexity of cause and effect. This Jikten Sumgon says in his biography that he then realized, because, see, when he arrived at Pamodrupa's place, and Pamodrupa accepted him as a disciple, and Pamodrupa trained him in Mahamudra and all that, then Jikten Sumgon himself experienced, not experienced, but realized, a very profound level of realization of mind, in terms of the Mahamudra teachings. Then Jikten Sumgon himself thought I have arrived. There's nothing else I need to do now except to remain in this state of realization of the nature of mind. And then he thought, this is it. And he said, next day, Pamodrupa starts talking about cause and effect. I said, what? I said, I don't understand. And then he realized, wow, there's a lot more to go. This is related to what we call, in terms of the obscurations. Obscurations, that is known as the obscurations of the afflictive emotions. That, on the Bodhisattva path, at the 8th bhumi, you are free from those. There's the more subtle obscurations, which is called the obscurations, with regards to knowable objects. In other words, the obscurations to full knowledge about cause and effect. That is still present. That is still in place at the 8th Bodhisattva bhumi. At the 8th Bodhisattva bhumi, the klesha obscurations are gone. But the neya obscurations, I think it's pronounced that way, neya in Sanskrit, meaning objects of knowing, meaning things that can be known, that obscuration is still in place. More subtle clearing has to happen. So this is particular to Kyoba Rinpoche's emphasis. Towards the end of Kyoba Rinpoche's life, people ask him, because it has become fashionable by that time for all the great lamas to have a special philosophy called tenet. Like everyone has a special tenet. So they wanted Kyoba Rinpoche to say, what is your special tenet? What is your special doctrine? What is your special... And the word tenet is also related to study of Buddhist philosophy, like the 4 tenet systems. Some of you are quite familiar with that. So first with the great exposition, then followers of sutra, then mind only, then the middle way. These are the 4 tenets, right? But generally, in the early Kakyupas, Gampopa, Pamodrupa, Jikten Sumgon, they always say, tenets are not necessary. In fact, these tenets can even lead to more confusion. So they are not fans of philosophical debate. You see how when these people trained in this came to debate Milarepa did not debate them actually. I mean, you could say his debate, but he didn't, because he didn't follow the debating rules. Instead, Milarepa used other methods, to cause these debaters to doubt their own debate rules. So this is kind of the Kagyupa style, right? But they use this technical term and ask Jikten Sumgon, what is your tenet? What do you consider to be the highest tenet? And Kyoba Rinpoche says, if people ask that question later on, he said to his disciples, what is your Lama's special tenet? Tell them my Lama's special tenet is not having any tenets. This is actually Nagarjuna's answer. Nagarjuna himself said, I don't have any positions. I don't hold any tenets. But of course, later, his tenet got turned. His teachings got turned into a tenet called the middle way, Madhyamaka. The irony of... Yeah, so like Nagarjuna, Jikten Sumgon says, I don't have any. But he says, but if they insist, if they give you no choice and say, no, you can't say that, then if you really have to tell them something, tell them that our Lama's tenet is cause and effect, is causality. That is what he gave special emphasis to seeing karmic causality, to understanding that it is not skillful to think, oh, once I'm Buddha, cause and effect don't matter anymore. So if even Buddhas cannot operate or ignore cause and effect, how much more all of us cannot ignore cause and effect. So this is, if you want to force him and his disciples to put forth a tenet, a system, then he says, tell them cause and effect. Changchu sem chorim poche ma ge ba nam ge gyurche ge ba nyam ba me ba yang go ne gong du be wan shung. Okay, ta-ta if you